If you post the way I've been telling you to, it's bound to happen where somebody wants to buy your footage. So here we are again in this situation. A network just bought my footage to use on a show, and I just sent the footage off. I signed an NDA. So I can't tell you where or when this footage is going to play, but it's a show we all know, and your uncle who loves conspiracy theories loves this show. $50 per second is what I'm charging them to use my footage, and I don't think you should charge everybody like that, but I got a feel for what they're looking for and how much they need it. I've been a camera operator for these kinds of people. I've been an editor for networks. I've been on both sides of this, so let me explain how this works. Also, they didn't message me because I have any contacts in big daytime TV. They just found my footage, so I don't know these people. For whatever reason, nobody talks about business stuff for drones or like selling footage or anything, so let's take a look at this one. The email before this was asking if I have any more footage like what they saw online, and I answered yes I do, and here's the rest of it. This is kind of what it looks like. They say, hey, we're filming with this company and we're using the footage for this kind of thing. We like your stuff, and somebody else is going to reach out to you to talk to you about payment and licensing and stuff. Are you up for it? That email comes and it's a bunch of office talk, polite nonsense, and the middle part is where it gets juicy. He says, with your permission and based on our current budget, we'd like to offer you a flat fee of $300 to use your footage. So if it works, like send us a W-9 and whatnot, and we'll like sign an agreement. He says he wants to pay me a flat rate of $300, and that saves me a lot of time because he gave me a gauge of how bad he needs this right off the bat. I do know they need it though, because they wouldn't have gone through the trouble of emailing me for it if they didn't. And based off the content of the show, I can kind of surmise that this is just going to be B-roll. This is like the transition between scenes when they open up to a new spot in the segment. It'll be like Tempe, Arizona with thought-provoking stock music. Everything's in sepia tone. It'll have those corny reality show sound effects. Then it'll switch to like some self-proclaimed expert or scientist talking about something. So because it's kind of like a documentary in the area, it's not about my footage. If this was Planet Earth, they need my footage because that's what sells the show. But if this is something like it's just to establish a new location, they don't need it that bad, but they do want mine specifically for it. So shots like this that are a transition kind of thing, 90% of the time when you get clients from like networks, this is what they need it for, this kind of stuff. So don't go open up your mouth and charge $40 just for the clout of being on TV and to be happy to work with them. If you just go hoe your footage out on a corner, it's not like they're going to remember you for the favor, or like they're going to come back and say like, oh, hey, we used you last time. We really need you again. With big networks like this, it's strictly business. That's why they have a budget. They just want to get the problem solved. They don't care about you. That's why they'll just pay you to get to the footage and get on their way. This isn't a thing where you're like building a network, earning trust. Maybe if this was like a local college, and yeah, these are people who will probably come back because eventually they might need something from you. Not the case with the bigger guys though. And even if they did come back, it's probably a different director, a different editor. They won't remember you. The people on the same shoot won't even remember what they paid for this. Like, there's so much footage to organize and sift through from their end. Like, that's not the kind of situation you need to worry about like doing any favors. So don't open up your mouth right away for a really low price just for the clout of being on TV. The other extreme of that is even worse. People will like go look on Reddit and ask a bunch of jaded old bitter men who have no health insurance from working in this for like 50 years what they should charge, and they'll say like, you should charge at least $2,000. Then they come back and they're like, I know my worth and I'm not going to work for anything less than this, and they just act like really, really pissy to be working with you. I've been on the other end of that. I'm just not going to email you back. We want to use your footage, but not if you like think you're Leonardo da Vinci or something. What the heck? So don't annoy them. You don't want to hoe your footage out on the corner for super low, but you also don't want to charge $1 million. There's like a happy medium. The good news is the medium is usually more than you think it's worth. From their perspective, you are saving them a lot of time because they had to have a marketing assistant or assistant director, whatever, pour through like hours of really crappy stock footage, and it's like 7-second segments. None of them were exactly the ones they want, or it's just there's too much to sift through. And then even if they did pick a shot, they have to worry about licensing being more expensive because they're using this for broadcast stuff now on TV. They can't speak to the person who filmed it to ask them if they have any like similar shots or anything like that. There's the salary they're actually paying to an employee to have to sit there for hours and deal with this kind of nonsense. It just is a pain in the butt, and you're making this really easy because you have exactly what they want. If they could have found my footage on a stock site, they would have done that, but they're emailing me because I'm making this easy for them and I have what they want. If this was for a big production, like if this was like Fast and the Furious versus Transformers 8 or something, I would charge $100 a second because I know they need this footage a lot more to establish scenery, and it's like an art piece, and it's like a 2-hour segment that this footage is going into. It's not one small transition in the middle of a documentary or reality show where they have like 10 hours total for the whole season and not that many viewers. It's not a super big deal. So you do kind of have to get a feel for what these people need it for. That's why I'm fine with the price that I charge, but you do need to understand understand that you made the problem really easy for them. One, they don't have to commit through dealing with the stock footage route that I just said, how annoying that is. Two, the other alternative is to hire a camera operator or a drone pilot locally for like $500 for a half day or something to go try and get this footage the way that they're describing it to them, how they want it. The weather might be bad. The footage might come out terrible. The guy might just suck. They have to direct remotely and hope that it comes out looking like something that they want to use when they've already seen your footage and know you have exactly what they want right there. So they don't even have to deal with all of that. Then if they're wrong, that's like $400 or $500 burned. And what you have, it's just sitting right there. So there's kind of this poker game you play when you're talking to these people. There's a lot of reading between the lines. I noticed that when he gave me that flat rate, which is nice of him to do because usually the first person to open their mouth about money or price is showing their hand first. It did save me time that he said that, but I noticed something. He said, "Can we use your footage? Here's the flat rate." He didn't say, "I want to use 8 seconds to 15 seconds or anything like that. He just said, "We want to use your footage." So I'm thinking, is he hoping that I'll be like, oh shucks, willikers. I'm so glad you picked me. Use as much as you want and I'll take my $300 yippee. That's like 2 minutes of footage or something in that reel. Like, if you're not just going to take all my footage for $300. No, are you kidding me? That's why my response is, yeah, I license footage all the time, but here's the rate that I typically work at to try and let him know, like, I'm not just hoeing out my footage. And two, what sections are you looking for? So this isn't like you're just taking the entire reel, like which parts do you want? So either he was trying to get the whole thing, or the other alternative is he isn't the editor, he's just a director or an assistant, and he doesn't really know how much of this footage is going to be used in the end. So he just knows that his editor needs footage, but not how much. So they just kind of are just throwing out a price to like let you know, hey, this is about how much we need the footage, just to save everybody time, and we don't know which scenes or how much of it we're going to use in the end, which I'm fine with, and I've been in that spot too. To get them to open up about this though, typically when they email you, they don't put a number out there. They say, "Do you license footage?" And you say, "Yes, I license footage. What's your budget and what shots are you looking for specifically?" Hopefully if they answer, that kind of gives you a gauge of how bad they need it. Because if they're like, "Hey, we will pay $1,000 for this," you know it's going in like 23 Jump Street or something. Like they're going to use it for commercials, or they want to use it for like multiple episodes. It's a bigger deal to them and they're putting out a big number because they want it really bad. It doesn't mean you're robbing them. It just means they're getting more use out of it. That's a good position to be in, because if you did the opposite and you were like, "Oh, I'll take $75 for it," they're like, "Yippee," and then they use it everywhere, and you kind of just will wish you had cashed in on that one. So if you ask for a budget number, and if it's a network, I promise you they're used to doing this, but it'll kind of give you a gauge of the importance of how much they need the shot. It's scary putting out a big number. You think you're gonna like intimidate them, and then they're gonna like just scare off and then go hide in the bushes somewhere and you'll never see them again. It's not what happens. They're used to dealing with hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I'm telling you, if there's more than 3 people working on this whole thing, they're not like scraping the barrel. They have a budget. You don't ever like need to, "Oh, thank you for thinking of me with my widow footage," just to get on TV. You don't need it that bad, I promise you. Worst case, if they say no, it kind of weeds out the dumb people who were never going to pay you a lot anyways, and like you don't want to screw around with them. And usually if you are too high, they'll come back and say, "Oh, we can only pay 30 or 40 a second." They're expecting to do some kind of haggle if they don't have a big budget. It's really not often. They're just not going to say anything after they've gone through the trouble of like CCing 4 people. So don't panic. And a lot of times I won't get a response, and that's because it was like a local real estate agent who wanted to like trade me lettuce or something, or like he wanted a favor. I will do that for students, charities, but a lot of times some small business owners just want to get footage for like their Instagram. So it's not a big deal to them, in which case you don't want to deal with the bargain bin clients anyways. So again, I gave him a number when I responded, and he agreed to that. They'll tell you like, "Okay, great, like we're going to use the footage, and then we'll get back to you when we have picture lock," or whatever fancy film jargon they use to just basically say when we know how much we're actually going to use in the final. And usually that works great, but ironically, my stable genius big brain negotiating kind of screwed me here, because he said, "Okay, if you want $50, that sounds great. We're going to use a whopping 6 seconds of your footage." So in the end, it wound up only being a little chunk of everything that I filmed that they used. That's okay. In my mind, though, I wanted to charge little enough that it would encourage them to use at least 2 shots, like 2 different transitions, because then that's like 10 seconds-ish of footage. It would have been $500 for me, or more, because if it's cheap enough, they can put it everywhere. That didn't happen here. They only wound up using a couple seconds of it. So you never know what the reason is behind the scenes. Maybe they had other shots, or they only used a smaller section of the Tempe segment that they planned on. I don't know. In the end, it's money though, so I'm fine with it. Normally, that strategy of charging per second works really well. And I've made a lot of money on other situations using that. So it's not like it's a loss. I'm going to keep doing it because usually it pays off well. But just in this case, you win some, you lose some. And this one, it wasn't a huge payday, but it's still cool to have. And if they're happy with the footage, I'm fine with that. Keep posting. Stuff like this can happen. I had a student who did the same thing in the first couple of weeks of posting, and he got $1,500 for like footage of a river, like something you would think nobody would ever need that crap. What the heck is that for? But it happened. So don't get lazy about it, because leaving your drone in the closet, nothing's going to happen. But there's all sorts of opportunities like this. So in the next couple of months, if you see Tempe, Arizona on a show you're watching, maybe it's my footage, but that's pretty much it. And the end.